Okay.
Hello, YouTube. This is the Morals Matter podcast, and today we are joined with a very special guest. Guess who?
Hi,
Guess
my
you
name
would
is
never
Mai.
guess who it
Oh,
is.
hi, my name is Mai Mark. I'm a self-identified Christian. I was confirmed, I think, like around last month. I thought a lot about my faith and some other topics. I enjoy having conversations about morals, and I'm excited to dive into some of these topics. Yay!
Wait, what does a self-identified Christian mean? Or wait, you said you're confirmed?
I'm confirmed, yeah.
What does that mean?
Oh, so some Christian denominations hold a quote unquote confirmation. It's similar to a baptism, but it's like you yourself saying that you're a member of the church and you want to be committed to Christ for the rest of your life.
Oh,
You
so
learn something new
do
every
you
day.
applic? Do you apply for that or what?
You have to take classes.
Okay, that's interesting. Does that affect
But
your?
you can still be Christian without being confirmed.
Right, yeah. Key question when it comes to people of faith. Why do you believe in Jesus of Nazareth?
Well, it's a really long story, but to summarize it, um, like a lot of people, when we're in dark places, I kind of use him as a friend or a place of refuge, and I feel like he's provided a lot with me. And from what I've been told, or from what I feel or know, I feel that he loves me a lot. And why would I not love someone who loves me so much? You know?
Okay, so I would just like to confirm you did grow up in a Christian household, right?
Yes, but I was not Christian at the time. I was actually sort of against it for a little bit.
Do you think if you were brought up in a agnostic household, you would be Christian?
Chances are I would probably stay agnostic because I've never been introduced into that faith, but I mean, you never really know, but I feel like chances are I would be agnostic, but if I was properly introduced to the Christian faith, hopefully I would still be Christian in that hypothetical universe.
Okay, that's fine. Um,
Okay, what do you believe?
well, the thing is, for the audience, if you
Keep the
watch
video.
my,
Why
yeah,
I'm a
if you peep
deist.
my latest video about the cosmological argument, it does mention that I'm a deist, and I would say that I am a deist in terms of the universe and its existence, but I would say I'm more of an atheist when it comes to like the the inside the universe, because I don't think if God does exist, um, I don't think he would interfere with human affairs, and
Hmm.
that's sort of my whole stance on it.
Fire.
Now, I have a question for you, actually.
All right.
Do you think if everyone in the entire world was not religious and was atheist,
Hmm.
would the world be better or worse in your opinion?
Mm, like agnostic or like complete atheist?
Um, agnostic atheist. I mean, just a non-belief in
Just like in
God
general, like that does
or no
not believe in.
religion, basically.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay. Well, obviously this is hypothetical, so I have a complete no idea, but um, I think it would be slightly worse, but it's not a big margin. Like maybe like details here and there, but just because there's no religion doesn't mean people can still act good. With my religion at least, we have some sort of motivation to act quote unquote good or quote unquote morally correct. But just because someone isn't religious or just because someone is religious does not necessarily dictate if they're going to be quote unquote morally right or quote unquote morally wrong in their lifetime.
Okay, so do you think the world would be better or worse?
Okay, yeah, I think the world would be around the same, but I think with religion, religion comes up with a positive effect, but it's not huge.
Do you think that there would be sort of more of a united sort of aspect of the world, like everyone would sort of.
Yeah, there would definitely be a more united aspect of the world because there's a lot of conflict with religion. Obviously, I don't really need
Mhm.
to get into details about that. Um, But yeah, I mean, I feel like religion definitely comes with a lot of negatives, but I think it also comes with a lot of positives. I think that sort of evens itself out because I like we can't like nobody can control anything, and the world's going to be bad, but the world's also going to have its good, you know. So I like to view it as a more neutral standpoint.
Yeah, I guess you could say that, but also I feel like a lot of um okay, I guess a better way to ask is like, do you think people, or do you think there is actually a benefit, societally speaking, to belief in a certain religion or God?
um, yeah, I would say there's benefits to us as a society. I'm not gonna obviously there's gonna be detriments as well, but if I were to list a few benefits, I would list something like um a lot of homeless shelters and not parish isn't the right word, but like food food donation places are a lot of them are Christian based, and a lot of them receive donations from a lot of churches. For example, Evangel Hall, I think it's like one of the largest in Toronto. I could be wrong, but Evangel Hall is Christian based. A lot of Christians volunteer there. I volunteer there, and we cook meals for the homeless. So that's a positive impact from a result from our moral standpoint, because the Bible tells us to feed the hungry and give to the needy. So obviously there's this benefits, but again, like what you mentioned before, there are detriments like conflicts um, in religion, where even with Christians, like Christians fight another Christian over like stuff that
Yeah,
doesn't
like
matter.
verse
Like at the end of the
verses and
pardon?
shit. Like interpretations and
Yeah,
stuff of the
interpretations.
Bible.
That's why different denominations exist. Like,
Yeah.
for example, like Catholics and Christians, and the whole Martin Luther situation. At the end of the day, I'm not Catholic, and at the end of the day, my friend is not Christian. But that doesn't matter because at the end of the day, we both love God and we both want to improve and at the end of the day be a better person. So that was off topic, but in conclusion, I think that religion has a overall somewhat positive impact.
That's true, but okay, first of all, do you think the Bible is the word of God?
Um, it is an interpretation of the word of God. I don't think it's like direct word of God put on paper.
What does an interpretation mean to you?
Because God was not there to write scripture himself. I don't think Jesus was even educated. I don't know. Okay, I don't know if he was illiterate or like could not write. But he was not well educated. He grew up in a poor home, so he could not scribe things himself directly from God. And if God can't scribe things himself, he has people scribing it for him. And because we're not perfect, there's probably going to be some imperfections in there. And again, like translations, errors, and all that stuff probably made its way through in our modern version of the Bible. So I actually don't think it's like direct word of truth, but I think it has a overall sound idea of the message.
Okay, I can get with that, but just a little off topic, but you do believe that God is all loving, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh
and
boy.
and you are aware of the specifically in the Old Testament, the rampant amounts of slavery, genocide, and
Yes,
sexism
I'm aware.
in the Old Testament. So how do you sort of like reconcile with the fact that this loving God that you believe in was condoning, not even condoning, but just like not doing anything about genocide? Well, he was promoting genocide, but he wasn't doing anything about slavery and things of that nature. So how do you sort of explain that
Um,
to
okay,
yourself?
yeah. So because I only have context from the Bible, and I don't really know if the writers of the Bible are telling the complete truth or when they write these words. So I don't know if when God said, "I support slavery," that's actually what he said. But also, what things I think matters a lot is context, and a lot of Christians say that. So if you're going to use that argument, okay, fair enough. But I need you to quote certain scripture for me to analyze it, read it in context, and then give you my actual answer. Because I've heard people say that, but I've never really had any concrete evidence that actually happened. I'm sure it exists somewhere, but I feel like I need to see it myself. Fair?
Um, That's fair, but I don't actually know the specific verse, but it is in Exodus somewhere.
Would you
It's a
like to look it up? I'll give you time.
sure. Yeah, laws about slaves, Exodus 21. Let me
Just the whole
find.
chapter?
You could pull it up if you'd like. Here. Exodus 21:20. I'll just read out the verse. When a
Yeah, okay.
man strikes his slave, male or female, with a rod, and the slave dies under his hand, he shall be avenged. But if the slave survives a day or two after, he is not to be avenged, for the slave is his money
Okay, but I'm gonna read the NIV version because
or property.
that's what I have,
Yeah.
and it's also more modern day, so I can interpret it that way.
NIV? Wait, what
Anyone
is
who
that?
beats their pardon?
What's the NIV?
Oh, New International Version.
Okay.
Anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result. But they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. Okay, so verse 20, that obviously makes sense. You should be punished if your slave dies. Verse
Yeah.
21, that's a bit weird. So can I just get a second to read the whole chapter?
Sure.
Okay, I think that's obviously weird, but if I were to defend myself and interpret this differently, okay, if you go back to same chapter, Exodus 21 verses 16, this whole chapter is about laws of slaves. So I feel like we're comparing a lot of like morally sound verses with this one weird verse. So if you go up to 16, it says anyone who kidnaps someone is to be put to death, whether the victim has been sold or is still in the kidnapper's position. That makes sense, right? And
Wait,
if you
what verse
read
is that?
16,
16:21 or 21:16? Oh
like
yeah.
21:16,
Yeah.
make sense?
Yes.
Like, does that make sense in a morally sound way?
Anyone who kidnaps Okay, that's
So
fine.
some of these Old Testament laws are sort of in a sense of justice. So the Bible forbade kidnapping people to sell them into slavery, which is quoted in 16, which is common in a lot of ancient cultures and also our culture now, because obviously that would like technically be considered like human trafficking, right?
Mhm.
So although I feel like the verse 21 was definitely weird, I don't think because one was, like I said, because of human interpretation or because of the middleman, that not all these laws are going to be 100% accurate, because it's also contextual with the time. Because at the time, they thought slavery was okay. And that's how they, because I assume the writer's opinions must have influenced their writing when they were writing the Bible. And they took it in a more of a cultural context. Like even when we hear something, when we get advice, we like to adapt it to our own culture context now, which is why like a lot of churches are more like gay affirming, because back then they weren't so gay affirming, which is why there weren't that many gay affirming churches. But now, because of our own culture context now, because being gay, quote unquote gay is quote unquote okay, a lot of more these communities have emerged. Okay, I'm not like I'm spitballing. Like I know it doesn't make sense, but like I'm trying to get at a sense where it's like just cultural context in general. I'm not really well spoken.
I was not following for a lot of that. Also, it's important to know that in this chapter, the chapter is called Hebrew servants. So
Yeah.
it seems as if, especially for 21:2, if you buy a Hebrew servant, he has to serve 6 years, but in the 7th year you shall go free. So it says nothing about the slaves from the surrounding nations, which is spoken on somewhere else. I'm trying to find the verse. I can't find it.
While you find the verse, can I say something?
Sure.
So the reason why they say Hebrew slaves is because I believe the writer, well, it was written in Hebrew, so that I assume that they were in, they were like in Israel. Is that like that's why they speak Hebrew, right? Israel.
Yeah.
Yes, Israel. So I assume they're in Israel. So, like, if I say, like, if I'm stating Canadian laws, I say Canadian citizens can blah 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 blah. So just because Canadian citizens can blah 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 does not mean American citizens can blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? They only mention Hebrew because that's where they are and that's the sort of context they're speaking in. And I also want to clarify the Hebrew word for slave or ebed is more accurately translated to servant or indentured worker. I actually learned that from youth group rather than than actual like lifelong slavery. So, and a lot of these slaves also had to pay up their debts. And this most of these quote unquote slave owners, or more as in servant or maid owners, they could only keep them for a certain amount of time, which I think in Exodus it mentioned 6 years. Yeah, he used to serve you for 6 years. And then in Deuteronomy somewhere, I don't necessarily know where, I know it's also mentioned that when they were set free, they had to be given some sort of financial compensation to
That is
start a new
true,
life.
but that's only for indentured servants who are from Israel, who are
Israel?
Israelites. Yeah. Or
Okay,
like
what does it say about other slaves?
so
Do you have any verses?
Leviticus 44 says, I'll just read the whole thing. Uh your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also buy some of their temporary residents living among you and members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. You can bequeath them to your children as inherited property, and you can make them slaves for life, but you must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. So, what
I
does
remember
that
we
say?
talked about I remember we talked about
We
this
did talk about this. And
um so I'm assuming your point here is just in general like the another verse describing like supporting slavery.
supporting not only slavery but racism as well. So,
When it specifies, but you not must rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly.
yes. Also, I remember something you said before about how slavery was like okay at the time, and you could say that it was okay at the time, but if God is objectively moral and has objective morals, how can slavery be like normal at one point and condemned at another point if the God is the same, and we've they've created us and God has created us, uh and like he's okay, like the fact that slavery is even in the Bible at all, like laws about slavery, like that shouldn't even be there if God is, all loving and objectively moral, because objectively slavery is not correct, right?
Okay,
Wouldn't
can I?
Yeah, you can
Yeah, I
speak.
agree. Okay, so again, with context, I think the because I think our modern definition of slavery and their definition of slavery are very different. Like I said before, and like the Bible says itself in Exodus with its laws, that slaves were in or ebed in Hebrew, they should be treated as more like servants or like, and like I said, they were paid financially uh, afterwards. They
Only
were more
Israelite slaves. I want to make that distinction. Also, it's weird how if if they were supposedly treated like servants, why would they have to specify in Exodus 20 anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if they die, but if they don't die, it's fine. So why would they have to explain that if they beat them, it's okay as long as they don't die?
I don't think that's what they're saying. I think okay, because it tells us to not beat them in general, but because they actually do say if you beat them and they still survive, what does it say? You should be punished, but if they
No, that's
so I'm
not
trying
what
to
it
find the
says.
verse. Where's the word? Is it verse 20? Yeah. If anyone who beats a male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct assault, but they are not to be punished if the slave recovers a day or two, since the slave is their property.
Is that not the definition of like American slavery in the 1800s? Slaves are their property, so they can do with them as they please, essentially, right? So I don't know if that's exactly correct, your definition of.
Well, I think it says not to beat them in general, but it's just saying if you do end up beating them and you was it and they don't die, you shouldn't be punished. And I'm not saying that's good, but I'm just saying just because it says that it does not necessarily
Wait.
equal
Where does it say you shouldn't beat them?
the Bible. I don't think the Bible ever encourages beating your slaves.
But where does it say you shouldn't though?
Okay, wait, hold on. Let me find this verse.
I mean, it's fine if you say that, but even in this verse, it says that if they beat them, they shouldn't be punished, like implicitly, because if they beat them and they live, it's fine because they're property, right?
I can't find a verse that specifically says you can't beat slaves specific, but I know there are verses out there saying you shouldn't harm one another for your own malicious intent.
Okay, well,
And I
that's
think
fine. That's
pretty
good.
good.
You shouldn't harm other people for, whatever reason. But it specifically says that slaves aren't people, they're your property. So it's okay to beat them because they are your property. Is that false?
Well, I think it's still bad, but in that historical context, there's no like police, there's no organized law or rules on how to treat slaves, and the best you had was what society um thinks. And I think
Well, the best you had is God, isn't that right?
yeah, but like I don't think God speaks to. I mean, I wouldn't know because I wasn't alive at the time, but I don't think God speaks to everyone
Well,
like fit like
right.
verbally.
But the fact that I mean, who wrote
But I think it's
Exodus?
implied if the recovery only takes like 1 or 2 days that it's not like a severe beating
That's
or
a
punishment.
that's a I would argue that's an indefensible position. I could come up with ways to beat people and they would recover in 1 or 2 days, and it would not be
It's still
mild.
morally wrong. It's still morally wrong, but I feel like at the time they would still give the slave masters the benefit of the doubt. Like I'm not defending slavery. I think like that was written, it was bad. But I think you have to take the good and the bad. You're only pointing the bad verses, and I will admit there are flaws in the Bible. Not everything in the Bible is gonna be perfect. But you can't just like I can't just look at you, pick out all the flaws in you, and say you're a bad person without realizing you're actually a good
Okay, but
person.
the thing
Like
is, the thing is, if we're to say that objective morals exist, how are we defining what's good and bad if God
wait, what do you
is
mean objective?
because I mean in if there is a if there's a triomni God, that implies there's objective morality. And so who are we to say that I'm picking out the bad if this is the book of essentially God's teachings? So like who are you to say that that's a bad verse
I don't
and
think
then
it's
there
fully
are
God's
other.
teachings.
Well, okay, that's fine, but I'm saying like I'm assuming Exodus was written by Moses. I don't know if that's right. And
I think like you're somewhat right there, yeah.
he was like in communication with God, right?
At
So
times, yes.
also if this isn't like a holy text, then it shouldn't be in the Bible, right? But it is. So it is implicitly like God speaking in some form, whether it's direct or
I know
not.
there's some people who will defend the Bible till the day they die, but I don't think the Bible is 100% perfect. Like, because you're still saying that like, oh, but it's such a holy text, so everything must be right, right? No, it's not. Like, I don't know if
Well,
you grasp my opinion on that.
it
Like, I
I
think that's where a lot of me and a lot of other people disagree because a lot of people will defend the Bible to the day they die, and I can't enunciate, but you know what I mean.
mhm.
And for them, hey, that's good for them. But in my personal opinion, I think it's actually very flawed. But it doesn't mean that I will take I won't take advice from it. I usually, especially in the Old Testament, because a lot of like in my opinion the morals there are kind of iffy. I like to take it with a grain of salt. And I know people will be like, oh, you're cherry picking. But again, human intervention, like the Bible is written by humans and that involves human intervention, and humans by nature are um sinful. And I know a lot of people will argue, oh, because God knew this would be such a leading text for us in the future, so why didn't he just make the prophets perfect? Well, I don't know, because I don't know why God didn't choose to make us perfect either. So there's a lot of
Mhm.
things that I don't know, and I'm willing to admit that I don't know a lot of the stuff. But this is just from what I can analyze that um but you make a lot of you make a lot of good points, but we have to take good with the bad, and I'm also willing to accept that there is a lot of bad in this quote unquote holy text.
All right. I mean, that's fine. I don't like the Old Testament anyways, so I can get behind that.
Yeah.
So what is it? 1 Samuel 15 verse 3 reads, "Now go, attack the Amalekites and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, or infants, sorry. What? Children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys." Dude, I'm so used to saying infinite, it's like ingrained
Infinite,
in
yeah.
my So what are your
Um,
thoughts on that? The Amalekite slaughter and shit.
okay, well, I don't think I've read this chapter, but um, assuming from what I know about the Canaans, um, they were known. I think they were known like something along the lines of like incest and like child sacrifice and like what is it called, like sacrificing them to like other gods.
All right, I mean, that's
Because
fine.
yeah, I mean, assuming they were so sinful and so deep, um, into their worldly life that like God was just like, yikes.
Okay,
um,
okay, let me interrupt you there. But
yeah,
I understand why they would kill or like try and, claim the land as it were, right? But
hmm
why would they say, put to death men and women, or sorry, children and infants, and cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys? So why would they include the animals and the children and the infants if they're
okay,
first of all if they're
animals. I can't speak. Sorry.
uh if first of all if they're trying to claim the land of Canaan, they're not necessarily trying to genocide them, or commit genocide, because the land is what matters, not the people. And so
I
they
disagree on that part. It was both
that's
the
actually
people and the
wrong,
land. Why?
I think, um,
Why?
because it was the land of Canaan that Israel really wanted, or
Yes,
like God
that's true,
wanted
but
Israel
also
to
the
want.
kids were not innocent. Along with that,
Well, I'm not saying they were innocent. I'm saying that if
well,
they
I think
did,
that goes. Wait, pause. Pause. I think that goes hand in hand because you said, "Oh, I think it's only the land that matters, not the people." So why are the people being killed? Well, animals I can't speak for. I don't really know, but the people were also deep in their sin. I just want to put that out there.
okay, let's just say the children specifically and the
Okay.
infants, especially the infants, because they, don't have any sense of decision making or cognitive capabilities or anything, right? So they are essentially a clean slate. So why would they be ordered to be massacred, basically?
I mentioned this before. Child sacrifice. It's mentioned in Leviticus actually. So because I guess let's go for animals as well. But child sacrifice, those like I'm not saying all because I don't know, but I'm gonna assume all because I wasn't there. Most of these children were going to be sacrificed to other gods. I think one like goes along the names of like Mora or something like that. I don't know. Not important. Those children were gone before they were conceived. So if they're going to be sacrificed to a obviously not real god in this context, I mean, if that was the purpose being served, then they should also not be spared. Not saying
I
that's right, but that's
Well,
for
if
the
you're not
time.
saying it's right, then are you really saying that God is all loving? Because like,
Pardon?
okay, first of all, that analogy makes utterly no sense. No disrespect, but
Wait, which analogy?
just you're because since the children were gonna be sacrificed anyways, they should be killed.
Like I know out of context that sounds really bad, but like I remember we talked about this another time about like if God told me to shoot up a school, would you do it?
I would.
um and yeah,
That's
you said you would. So if God like would you question yourself? Like be honest, would you question yourself?
um. Let's stay on topic. We can talk about this later. But
Okay, no, but it's relevant though. So can you just
is
like
it?
just give me an answer?
Would I question myself and like if I thought it was real? Like,
Like yeah, like you know you had the verse of God. Would you question yourself? Like, am I gonna shoot the school, or would you just straight up just do it?
well, obviously I would question myself like, oh my God, is this actually happening? But I think at the end of the day, it would happen.
Okay, exactly. Like it's a test of your faith. Like they're gonna like these people, are being told to like literally like kill a whole like group of people. And although they're probably expired, so they have probably have some sort of motivation because these people were terrible to them and they were their enemy. They also, I think, they also had some sort of moral basis where they were like, murder is wrong. So they're probably going to question themselves, but I think it's also a test of faith. When God said, "Do not spare all of them," and I don't know why God says, "Do spare all of them," but again, like God works in mysterious ways. I don't know why God would order something to do like this. I don't know why he would kill those animals, why he would kill the infants who probably had a future. But I feel like there was maybe a reason behind everything. Like, what if those children were just NPCs that just played a part in the role? Like, I don't know. Like, and I'm willing to admit that I don't know, but I don't think you can say um, God ordered people to kill other people, so he's not all loving. Like, I don't know if that's 100% true. Like, I know out of context, like it sounds weird, right? Like, and I agree with you, but I don't know. That's just what I think.
Well, it's not just people; it's infants, and also just because
Dude, did you listen to what I just said?
I let me explain. All right, so you said, oh, what if they're NPCs, and oh, what if God works in mysterious ways? I mean, like, those are fine things to say, but at the end of the day, it's it's it says a lot about God's like integrity, if you will, and like if God is willing to sacrifice children, innocent children, presumably, who are just for a test of faith. Like, it's not like the Moses situation. I don't know if it's Moses or who else, but like
What do you mean the Moses situation?
like
The thing I talked about yesterday?
yeah, like the test of faith.
Abraham, like, yeah,
Abraham, yes, Abraham. It's not like he stopped Abraham, or he stopped the Israelites from killing the children just to see if they would go that far. Like, no, he told them to kill them. So it's like not exactly, it's like a test of faith, but it's like on a whole different level, in my opinion. And also, I it's fine if you say you don't know, but I think it says a lot about, sort of
I mean, I think. Can I say
Yahweh
something?
as
Yahweh.
as a whole. No, like, just like I know a lot of people say like Yahweh and like the God of the New Testament is like they're two completely different characters, but at the end of the day, it's still God. And if we're trying to separate them just because one of them is perceivably bad and one is all loving,
I was
it's
never
like
doing that.
I know that you're not doing that, but it does make sense, right? Like, in the Old Testament, there's a lot of violence and a lot of stuff that God commands, and then in the New Testament, it's all about forgiveness and love and sort of loving your neighbor like yourself and all that stuff. So it, like, just intuitively speaking, it makes sense why people would think that Yahweh is evil and Yahweh like is commanding these genocides and shit. And so it just sort of, it not only questions the integrity of the Bible, but it also questions the all lovingness of God himself. So
Okay, wait, pause.
yeah,
I mentioned this before, but those, like, again, the Canaanites regularly practiced child sacrifice to other gods. And
I
if those
know.
children had been spared and been raised in the same culture, most likely they would have grown up to continue the same evil practices. Um,
Pause.
much like a lot of children raised
Pause.
in a lot of extremist ideologies today.
Yeah, I get that. No, that's completely fine. But listen to this. All
I
right.
know you're. Wait, can I say something really quickly before you start?
Sure.
I know you're saying that, like, because God is saying it's okay to murder infants and animals in the sense that it challenges his integrity. And I listened to what you just said. I paid attention to the
No,
whole
that's
part
not
of
what I
it.
was gonna say. But if you let me speak.
But I'm not saying that you're wrong, and I'm not like challenging you or anything. I just want to put that out there. But like, I don't think that like that's 100% like what you said was like 100% true.
Okay, I mean that's fine. If it's not 100, it's it's 99. But okay,
Okay.
listen. Moving on. But what I was trying to say was, like, imagine if the Israelites had killed all the women and children, or all the women and men, and
Mhm.
they had raised the infants as their own, as Israelites. would they not be under the guidance of God and thus live like a moral and loving life? Would that not be true if they had been spared?
Let me think. Okay, obviously, like, I don't know. I like that's we all want to think of the good ending. We all want to think that the Israelites will just be like good parents and raise the kid well. Um, but I guess
Hey,
I don't know. I
it's
feel
fine
like
to
it's always
concede points
like,
as well.
yeah, like I know that's obviously like a good point, but I can always go back to the whole test of faith thing. But I don't want to like repeat my points, you know. But I think it's just the thing where it's like it kind of is what it is. It could lead with because again, like racism was pretty prominent back then, just as how it is today. Just because it was prominent doesn't mean it was morally right. But and also the Israelites aren't perfect, so maybe if they had a Canaanite child in their hands, that that it wouldn't go well because I mean, if you're raising the child of your quote unquote enemy race, it's not going to be a good look for you or your family, and you might be ostracized by your fellow Israelites. Because remember, although the Israelites were initially the chosen one, because they were flawed and disobeyed God, they didn't end up getting to where they wanted to be.
Okay. I would say that, you know, a child having a troubled life is better than them dying, you know. That's just
I
my
mean,
opinion.
wait. I remember. I don't think that. Like, I can't say what your opinion is, but I mean, you said you would rather kill yourself. I mean, like, this is like out of like
Yo, this is
context, but
getting
like,
cut out for real.
like okay, hypothetically, you said a lot of people would like just kill themselves instead of enduring the pain they would have to live through a struggled life. And if they're a baby, like I'm playing for your side this time, and if you're a baby and you
Okay,
have
wait.
pretty much zero consciousness, why not just be killed then and
Okay,
have
but
no suffering in the future?
pause. I don't believe that you believe that. And just because I believe it, first of all, I'm not the one defending this genocide, right? So if
No, I'm
I,
just saying there's a flaw in your argument because you said I believe this, but then you also says this, so you're
it's
just
not a
contradicting
flaw. It's
yourself.
not a flaw because you don't believe that, and this is your defense, right?
It's
So
my defense, but I'm proving you wrong with your own argument.
you're not proving anything because
I'm not necessarily proving you're wrong, but I'm just saying like what you're saying is not 100% clear.
it's, why is it not clear? Because from your worldview, life is valuable, and like, would you agree that someone or like a child dying to like a sword or something, or I don't know what they had, like a spear, right?
Hmm.
Would that be better than them having like a troubled childhood? I don't think you would say that's true.
If you use that example, then yeah,
But that's how they were killed, isn't that right?
yeah, but like you said before, like in your own argument, like I'm trying to play for your side here. You said that
But I'm not.
a
But
lot of people.
You're not playing for my side. I'm playing. I'm asking you because this is your belief and this is your defense.
Yeah,
And
but you can't say that
I know, but my
if you say,
beliefs
wait,
don't matter.
pause. If
Yeah.
you're saying that against me, saying I believe this, but you also believe that, and this is also they're both contradicting yourselves. You don't actually believe that, do you?
Okay. That's the two call quit fallacy. Let me just say that. All right. Just because I believe something and then I say something else to refute your argument, it doesn't mean that my belief or what I said is wrong. It could be that my belief is wrong, but I'm also arguing from your side because Christians have objective morals, and in those objective morals, life is valuable. So from your perspective, the the Amalekite slaughter should be objectively wrong.
A
But
lot of Christians do have objective morals, but it does not necessarily mean that we're always right or always wrong. Maybe those people at the time believed that those kids should have just been killed because they would have lived to live a lot tougher life that wasn't really worth living. Like obviously right
it's
now
not
I
subjective
think
though.
wait,
Yeah.
pause. Obviously right now I obviously think the whole sunshine happy rainbows ending is where the Israelites get to keep those Amalekite kids, raise them to be good people, and those Amalekite kids will not experience any racism or sort of death penalty in their life. But chances are, and I think there's a very high chance, those Amalekite kids, if they had the chance to be raised by the Israelites, they would be executed like very fast by the rest of the Israelite society because they were ostracized for being their enemy. So those kids were probably at the time were going to be killed anyway. So why would you kill them? Why would you kill them 10 years later when they have a consciousness compared to now when they were a baby. It's like you're picking and choosing. So I'm not saying they're both are like there's a good option, there's a bad option. Both are bad, but which one is the better out of the bad options?
I don't know which is better, but is okay. What I do know is that the slaughter of children is and should be wrong. And I think that I'm sure if you can use the argument that God works in mysterious ways, I'm sure God could have figured out a way to make the Israelites not condemn the Canaanite children or the Amalekite children. Like, first of all, if Israel or like if the Israelites were like the chosen people, couldn't God have told them, and once you spare these children, you must not treat them as an outsider, but treat them as your fellow Israelite or something like that.
I don't think whether or not God will say that or not, I don't think the Israelites would listen.
Okay,
because if they can't listen, pause. If they can't listen to God's commands that will literally give them eternal freaking life, I don't think they could like having the God saying that just to motivate them to raise these children well would be enough for them. So I think God knew that internally and decided not to say it because
isn't that also them failing the test of faith? Like, because here you also said that this is a test for them to see if they're faithful. But
I don't know that for
also,
sure, but that's what I'm gonna assume for now.
You're saying that, and then you're saying it couldn't have been true in the other breath,
Wait, pardon?
Like you said.
No, I'm saying I'm assuming this because okay, I'll admit I'm literally like I can barely make my own Fortnite account without my parents' permission. Like I'm still young and I'm still learning about the Bible. So I don't know if this is 100% a test of faith, but I'm going to assume it is for the sake of this because I'm not gonna like go into 100%.
I think it is also a test of faith, but if it is a test of faith, then why would God not command something else that was also a test of faith that would save the children, right?
I don't know.
It just
and I wait, pause.
Yeah.
I don't know, and like I can obviously use that the God works in mysterious ways, but is there really another answer?
There isn't, and that's why I'm saying it doesn't make a lot of sense to believe in an all-loving God like this. It doesn't make sense to believe that this God is all-loving, and if he's not all-loving, it doesn't make sense to believe in him. That's what I'm trying to say. So
you think he's not all-loving because he allowed slaughters to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, at that point, if they're not, it's like the parent analogy you use. Like they can always these Canaanites have already walked away from Jesus' home, and if they're and Jesus knows that they're not going to come back, so he's always open to them. Pardon?
Wait. Oh, wait. Continue. I interrupted you. Sorry.
Sorry. Where is I on?
If Jesus something.
Okay, that was really helpful. Sorry, I lost my train of thought after that.
Well, I was gonna say Jesus wasn't even alive, but I thought
Jesus wasn't even alive.
You were saying about something like, oh, these people left God and so they wouldn't go to heaven anyways, or something like that.
Wait, sorry, I'm trying to recall what I said.
Well, I mean,
okay, So what was your original point?
So my original point was if you can't explain why an all-loving God would do this, it either is that
do what?
Allow the slaughter of children.
Okay, allow a slaughter. Okay.
And that, I mean, if you can't answer that, it either means you don't know, which is fine, but it questions the validity of your faith to a certain extent, because if God isn't all-loving, we probably shouldn't put faith in him, and it also sort of reveals the possibility that he doesn't exist, because this story is probably fabricated by like humans. So it makes sense in the atheist perspective, where this was sort of a story, which is what we say the Bible is. It's basically just extremely important fiction, which gives us an ethical basis for our humanist morals. But in your perspective, it's the teachings of God and like the word to a certain extent of God. So if God is allowing these things to happen and even promoting and telling them to do it, it sort of begs the question, why are you putting faith in this?
Okay, trailing back to your original point, because there were like 30 different points in there.
Yeah.
Back to the basis of it, just in one sentence, preferably. What do you want me to what do you want me to quote unquote prove to you?
Well, you're not proving anything, but I don't want you to prove
Saying
anything.
my opinion on, like, what do you want me to say my opinion on from what you've said?
Well, you couldn't explain why God would do this.
Allow a slaughter if he's all loving.
Yeah, so
okay, I think that's more of an act of justice rather than an act of love, because we like to use that term all loving, but in a certain, like, he is all loving, but like we like to use the term all loving specifically when we're talking about verses of love and care. This passage is not a verse of love and care, and it doesn't necessarily mean he's not all loving. But
well, when I say all loving, I mean omnibenevolence, which is a meta-ethical term. Sorry.
Okay, well, omnibenevolence and loving, all loving, are two different things.
It's not. I use them synonymously.
Sorry, we took a bit of a break.
Technical
we were talking about
difficulties.
omnibenevolence. So I just want to clarify. My bad. I was actually wrong. I thought omnibenevolence was all-knowing. I googled it. It's all loving. Because I learned it in context, not in definition. So first of all, my bad.
Mm-hmm.
Rolling back to your question. You're saying if God is all loving, why did he allow slaughter to happen?
Or he didn't allow. He told them to slaughter them. Let's just clarify that first.
Okay. Well, yeah. So why was he telling people to slaughter them?
No, well, I don't want to. I don't want to. Sorry. I don't want to know why. I mean, clearly.
What do you want me to say?
Well, it's clear that I mean, we've already discussed why, and it's clear that to a certain extent, it's a mystery to you and to a lot of people. And if
I'm still willing to defend it as a act of justice, and
this might be a stretch, vengeance,
like,
wouldn't you say?
Correction? Huh? Pardon?
It's more of an act of vengeance, not justice.
Of vengeance? No, I think it's justice, and again, like I said, maybe a stretch, but I can't think of a synonym, like protection from the world, from sin spreading.
All right. I mean, I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree, because
I think
I've already said a lot of my points.
We just have to agree to disagree. I want to say you do have a lot of valid points, and I mean, again, it's hard to really defend the Old Testament, and a lot of Christians just say that the Old Testament is just BS, which is like, I mean, yeah, it's just easy if you put it that way, but I'm just trying to, I don't know.
Admittedly, like, most of my free time is spent doing this, so.
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
Me not. So you're pretty well spoken when it comes to this stuff, and yeah.
Right. I mean, if I would like to move on to non-Bible things, but
that's kind of like a hard.
I have a fun one. It's a bit off topic, but I hope you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Why is bestiality wrong?
Do you think bestiality is wrong?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
like, can I just get your opinion before we move on? Out of complete
curiosity. I'll give you my opinion, but you have to answer not in correlation to mine.
Yeah, sure, of course.
So I'm personally a moral emotivist. So ethical or moral statements don't have any truth to them. They're sort of emotional statements. So when you say, like, when I say, for example, that bestiality is wrong, I think, ew, bestiality? That's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than, like, bestiality is objectively wrong. So I just think that moral statements are more of what people feel rather than the truth of them. So and when people think of bestiality, or when people, God forbid, see bestiality, they are disgusted, right? So that's why I think it's wrong.
Okay. I know you're talking about, like, a moral of, like, how you feel, but if I were to be more, what was I gonna say? Like law abiding,
like utilitarian.
Like, animals can't, like, verbally consent. So that's, like, essentially just, like, animal rape.
They can't consent. That's interesting, because they also can't consent to being killed, right?
Yeah, obviously, and that's why um that's why a lot of Christians are vegan or vegetarian, and I don't really know how to feel about like that. I have not necessarily formed a whole opinion on that, because obviously I think killing is wrong, but again, like I eat meat, so I don't know where I really stand on that. I probably need to think about that more, so I'm
So
willing
would
to
you
admit
say
that.
that the killing of an animal is worse than having sex with them?
I don't know.
Okay, I mean, that's
That
fine.
sounds really weird. Like I want to say like having sex with an animal is objectively worse, but then like you could say like, okay, would you rather be raped or be murdered? Then I'd obviously be like, okay, I actually
Wait,
don't
no,
know.
that's not
Okay,
where I was at all going
that's
with that.
off
I don't
topic,
think
but
you
like,
should try and anticipate where I was trying to go with something because that's not where I was trying to go. Because obviously human and animal experiences are very different.
mhm.
So from a human perspective, I mean,
I think it also comes where like you're like the act of sex is motivated from because well, I'm not gonna assume. I'm just gonna believe that all acts of bestiality derive from an act of or a feeling of lust, which by
okay,
definition is one of the seven deadly sins. Because
true.
I don't think you can feel any sort of connection or love with an animal, and even if you do, once again, if like God believes in boundaries, like if your wife does not want to marry you, you cannot force her to. So I mean, yeah, I actually think, I mean, there's probably you could probably prove me wrong in some way, but for now, I think that almost all acts of bestiality derive from a root of lust,
You
which
know,
is
I think
not
that's actually a
good.
very interesting rebuttal. I haven't heard that one before. Uh,
Hey, you learn something new every day.
I think that's actually the best one I've heard from
What have you heard so far?
well, I haven't heard any because most people say, "Oh, they can't consent," but then I say, "But they're murdered every day." And then they're
Hmm.
like, "Oh, whatever. I give up." Right? But
Yes.
that is an interesting point because you're a Christian, so you can sort of resort to that. But, you know, no offense if that was
Yeah, no, like I know, like I can. I mean, that's why I'm here, right? You want to get a Christian perspective on this,
exactly.
so
Yeah. That
hey,
is interesting, yeah. I mean, in my opinion, that's valid, right?
that one's going on the podcast.
That sure. I mean, most of it is,
I
but
mean, yeah, but like I've like, because like you've also obviously made a lot of good points about the Old Testament that I can't really prove. I can't really say that's right because it's obviously not right. So, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, this is. I feel like this is one where I can actually like give you an actual opinion.
facts. All right, another bit of a what is it? Like an oddball here.
Yeah.
But do you believe in the soul?
Do I believe in the soul? Give me your definition of soul.
Like sort of like if the body is material, the soul would be like an immaterial thing that we have to have a conscious experience, basically.
Like, like,
Like
our
basically like
feelings or
the
like what?
the thing that goes to heaven or hell, essentially. Because your
Oh,
body
okay.
doesn't go to hell; it's like your
Yeah.
consciousness does.
Okay. Um. Um. I know the body talks about the soul, but I don't know if that's just a personification of something that I'm not aware of, or they actually mean like the soul. So, I don't know. Never really thought about that.
Well, I was hoping you would just say yes because technically, like, if you're Christian, it's sort of implied that you believe in the soul.
Hmm.
Um, but what I was wait, so you said you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like I just don't know, because I like what I said before. Like, you probably have a rebuttal to the whole like if I do say I believe that I have a soul thing.
Well, I wanted to
Um.
bring up like psychedelics and sort of
Okay.
like how easy it is for a drug to change our conscious experience.
Hmm.
And that's sort of like how I was going to segue to saying that I feel like a consciousness is a material substance and it's just like chemicals, like biochemical reactions in the brain.
Hmm.
And yeah, so like I don't believe in a soul personally. I would say I'm a materialist in all regards of the definition. So that's sort of why I was trying to go with it. But because it was mostly because I was listening to this podcast with Alex O'Connor, And
Oh my gosh! What a
no,
surprise!
and he was talking
No,
with
I'm
this
joking,
guy.
joking, joking.
He was talking with this guy, and he brought up like the use of psychedelics and how easy it is for it to change your like conscious experience. And it's like weird if your soul is sort of this immaterial thing that's like that transcends like the physical realm almost. How could like a physical chemical reaction change it so vastly and so
Mhm.
crazily? And that's, I mean, it's an interesting rebuttal. I've never heard of it. I've never heard it before. So, I just wanted to, bring that up. But that's fine.
Mhm.
Do you think people are born in sin?
Like people not like naturally have sin in them.
No, like for example, if a baby was born and then instantly killed, would they go to hell or heaven?
Yeah, like I feel bad for saying this a lot, but like I really don't know. Um,
But like intuitively.
intuitively. Okay, obviously that's like impossible. So
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard for me to think of this logically. Um, but I don't know if hell's real. That's the thing.
That's actually true. I don't think hell is real either.
I don't know if I don't know if hell's. I don't really know where we like. I know heaven's real. I don't know. I think hell could be like a metaphor or a personification for something I'm just not aware of. But like, I think I'm just gonna leave it. I don't know before I say anything that I actually don't believe.
All right, fair enough. Now I low key want to bring up natural disasters and shit
And
because
no animal suffering.
oh, we'll get there. All right.
Okay.
So what do you think? Why do you think God allows the world to have natural disasters and things that aren't affected by humans? I mean, they were there long before humans were there. So
hmm
like, why would God make a world where there are things like that if he's all loving?
So obviously, I could use the whole divine withdrawal argument thing, where um, humans rebel against God. God's just like, okay, you don't want me, then I'll dip, and then God lets nature take over his thing, and nature itself will create things like famine or like natural disasters, and then people realize, oh, OMG, we actually do need God. So then God comes back, um, and helps them out and whatever. And I want you to respond to that first because I know you're gonna say something. So
Divine withdrawal, very interesting rebuttal. Now, one thing, okay, let's just concede the point that let's say God does sort of pull back from Earth, and you know, this allows like natural disasters and ecosystems like ecosystems to form into systems that need like predation to survive, basically like natural selection and all that stuff. So and then let's say like humans like, oh, this is bad. We probably need God back in the picture for this to go away. And then um they do. They like sort of believe in God again, right? And and then God comes back and then he's like, "See what happens when you don't believe in us or when you don't believe in me?" So, in this scenario, couldn't he have, you know, if he's all powerful as well, right? Couldn't he have just wiped away all the natural disasters and all of the natural like systems like natural selection and survival of the fittest in nature? Like, couldn't he have removed that and sort of like just taught them a lesson to see like what happens when God isn't in the picture? You
like,
know,
what kind of lesson?
like the lesson. Well, obviously, like when humans rebelled against God, the humans saw how bad the earth became without God's presence. So that probably instilled the fear that, oh, if we don't believe in God, the world is going to go into chaos. And
Isn't that what also applies with the natural disasters?
what?
Does that not also apply with natural disasters?
It does. That's what I'm
Like,
saying.
oh, okay. So I was asking you for like, okay, like what's your ideal sunshine rainbows answer to this instead of natural disasters?
Oh,
Like
well,
out of
the
curiosity.
sunshine and rainbows would be when God comes back, he's like, see what happens when I'm not here. and then
Isn't
he
that literally what it was though? Like
no, but then
he
he could have removed it. He could have removed the natural disasters. He could have removed everything that made the world bad, and then
okay, okay,
all the
that's
humans.
fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. But the thing is, he doesn't remove it because suffering exists due to the fallen nature of the world. And I already know that you know this, but this can be found in Romans. So because we still rebel against God, like natural disasters and sin is going to exist. Hypothetically, if we were all perfect and we all loved God, the world would be perfect. There'd be no natural disasters, and it's all happy and rainbows. And
Uh.
that's what heaven is eventually going to look like. So, I mean, I don't
Wait.
really know what you're trying to get at with. Pardon?
Do, do you realize the position you've just put yourself in?
Okay, wait. Say.
Wait. So do you think that if every single human on Earth was a Christian, the world would be sunshine and rainbows and
No, if
perfect?
everyone in the world was perfect. I never said Christian. I said sinless and perfect.
Sinless. Oh, okay.
And Christians,
That's by definition not possible.
yes, exactly.
So it's
So
like redundant to say that.
because we're not perfect, they're gonna like exist. Like what?
Well, okay, but also you have to understand that the fall of man was like when the Earth had a very low population, right? I don't actually know what it was, but it was very small compared to now. So why would God punish every, living being, not even human, like animal too, like because of a decision that a small group of people made in the past, you know? It,
Are you referring to Adam and Eve? Like why are we suffering from Adam and
no, no,
Eve's
no.
like?
Well, okay, that too. I mean, that's an interesting one, but also like the rebellion against God, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was not like the entire world, or that was not
Well,
like
it's
it was a small percentage of the now, or like the population that now exists. So why would God like punish everything else that would come in the future because of the decisions that like a group of people made at that time, you know?
because because they like we would have done the exact same thing in their position probably because we're also flawed just like them. But there are people who didn't rebel against God and are therefore blessed. That's why I remember this verse in Matthew chapter 5 somewhere verse something. It says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for
Sermon on the
righteousness."
Mount.
Pardon?
Sermon on the Mount.
Sermon on the Mount. Exactly. You know it.
I'm reading Matthew right
Um,
now.
huh? What?
I'm reading Matthew. I'm in the process.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so sorry. Back to your original point. You were saying why are we suffering from the choices they made like 100 well, over 100. I don't know why I said 100 thousands of years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
It's because they did what was according to their human nature, and we probably would have done the same thing. We probably also would have rebelled against God.
That's true. We probably would have, but
Even the chosen people, at the time the Israelites, they were literally promised like everything you could have ever asked for, yet they still rebelled because like not people are bad.
but why would God make humans in such a way where they would if okay, also another off topic, a little
Like
bit off topic,
sorry, like
but
can I guess what you're saying? Like
no,
I'm
no,
not saying
don't
that you're
guess. Please don't guess. It's usually
okay.
always wrong. But
Okay. Wait,
um
wait, can I just wait, please, this one time, please, please.
no, I know what you're going to say and it's wrong, all right?
Bro, okay, whatever.
It's wrong.
Wait, what do you
So,
think? What did you think I was gonna say? Out
you're
of
going to say like,
curiosity.
"Oh, why would human you think I was going to say why would God make humans in such a way that they would rebel in that scenario?" And that's not what I was trying to say.
I
I
mean, that's not what I was thinking of, but what were you thinking of?
let's not get into this chain, all right, where we try to guess each other's response. Okay, let me just continue. So, a lot of people say that since God is omnipotent and omniscient, he doesn't know what we're going to do because we have free will, but he knows what any free will bound creature or human, I guess, because we only have free will. Anyways, any like free will human would do in any scenario.
Sorry,
So,
my brother came in. Can you repeat that? I was
okay,
like,
sure. It was a
cracking.
bit confusing. So, God is omniscient, right?
Okay.
And if God is omniscient, technically speaking, he would know everything you're going to do. So technically,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't have free will. But the rebuttal is he doesn't know what you're going to do. Rather, he knows what any person with free will would do in any scenario. So it's not necessarily that you don't have free will. He just knows what I just said that, right? Do you understand that?
That yeah, that's fair to think. I mean, I don't think necessarily because I mean, I feel like God can know what we do, but he chooses not to control us. So I mean,
Well,
we
but
still have
that
it doesn't. Well, okay, just because God knows what we're gonna do does not necessarily mean that we don't have free will.
it does. That's the whole point. Because if God
Wait, why?
if God knows what we're going to do we really have free will?
I feel like he can know that and still work around with what he has, even though he knows what you're gonna do.
No, I think you
Like,
misunderstood. I said that,
I think I understand what you're trying to say.
yeah, so what I said was he doesn't like see our lives like a video, like he doesn't see our lives um like he's scrubbing through a video and seeing each decision and each like sort of like event in our life, right? He just knows like in any scenario what we would do. And
As humans, yeah.
that's the point of that's like the Christian point basically. That that proves that we still have free will even if God is omniscient. And I just want you to understand that before I move on so it makes sense.
Okay. Okay.
So you understand that. Now
I get a grasp of what you're saying, yeah.
now let's say so if God knew in any scenario any human like let's like in the fall of man in any scenario humans would rebel against him, why would he make that scenario to where any human put in that scenario would rebel against God is what I'm trying to say. So couldn't
Okay, yeah. I mean that was like originally what a lot of people get to. Like, I mean that's the same question as like why would God put us in a predicament where he knows that we would rebel against him and therefore have we face the consequences.
yeah, because
We get a
he's
lot of
omniscient,
like
so
that.
he would technically know if in what scenario a free will bound entity would, you know, in what scenario they would either look for God or rebel against God. So it wouldn't impede the free will of the creature. It would simply manipulate, you know, the world, but that's exactly what God is supposed to do. So it wouldn't like impede his. It wouldn't impede anything actually. So it's sort of once again disproving God's triomny status, and once again disproving his existence.
Okay, well, I mean, I didn't really catch on to a lot of your last part. I paid more attention to the first part. Um, I remember like you saying, like why, like a lot of people use the same argument. Like a lot of people say, like, why would I believe in God when He's gonna set me up for failure and try to test me and like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You get the gist of what I'm saying. I don't really view it personally as like I'm set up for failure, so God's setting me up for failure, so I shouldn't believe him. I view it as like these what was it gonna say? Like I don't think there's any harm in um believing that. Okay, what am I even trying to get at?
Also, let me
So
remind you,
there's a lot of thoughts going on right now.
this isn't for a personal belief. This is for the fall of man, right? And this decision also has massive implications because the the situation in which they rebelled against him would have effects on the entirety of the human existence and also animals and other things too. So it's like a profoundly important part in the Bible, I would say, and it's not necessarily about a personal. It's not about like the individual belief. Like obviously you could say that, but that's not what I'm trying to say here. You know.
Wait, sorry. Like your original question was it like why God, like why does God make us face the consequences when He knows we will
No,
rebel
that's
against
not what
Him?
I'm trying to say.
Like, I don't know, like, what's the question you're like
the
asking?
the question is about the fall of man,
What
and
about it?
I remember specifically you said that if any human was put into the position that those humans were, they would also do the same thing,
Okay.
right? And I would agree with that. So why would God like set up that specific scenario in where into into making humans, like any human, make the wrong decision basically? So why
I
couldn't
mean,
he
isn't
have?
that literally what I just said? Like, why do we like
But
why is
okay,
God
but
setting us up?
on a personal level, it has less implications. But I'm saying like, I mean, technically you could say that, right? But I'm not arguing for that point. I'm saying in this scenario, which has such massive implications on human life in the future, like it seems almost inevitable that this would happen. So it seems like it was almost prescripted by God. Like God is somewhat evil in that sense, you know?
Um, can you summarize your question in a sentence, like, for me? Because you're kind of saying a lot of things, but they're all like, I'm not saying they're bad. They're just very scattered, and like it's hard for me to
Okay,
pick one before you move on to the next point.
why would God allow, or why would God set up the 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 position, or oh my God, okay, like why would God um set up the scenario in where the people that rebelled against God would do that, and any human in that position would also do that? Like, why would He make it so that they would do that? You know?
So why would God set up us for failure in the sense where like because
Okay, sure,
we were
sure.
rebel
Yeah,
like something around like something along those lines?
sure.
Um, I think it roots back to the intention of free will, because with free will comes uh, choice, and with choice comes a choice of good and bad, and sin and good.
Okay, but I feel like I
So
already refuted that
with what?
with the fact that God doesn't. He doesn't. By doing this, He wouldn't impede our free will because, in a way,
Wait, by doing what he wouldn't
He wouldn't
impede our
impede our free will by making our environment in a he wouldn't impede our free will by making the environment in which we are placed uh like conducive to us making good decisions, essentially.
like what?
Like okay, wait.
Like
I
give
think
me
I
an
said that.
example, because obviously that's like the sunshine and rainbows answer. Like God just like gives us free will, but he also gives an environment where we can be sunshine and rainbows and be happy with each other. Obviously that's the sunshine and rainbows option, but can you give me like a realistic example?
Well, is that would be
Or
realistic
it's
if
like,
God is omnibenevolent, right? I think that's not the
no, because he
sunshine and
wants to
rainbows.
because he
That
wants
is
to
that in my opinion that is the world that would exist if God was actually real.
no, but because we are given ultimate free will, that also means we have the choice to create suffering.
Okay, but I also don't okay, ultimate free will in the sense that we can make decisions, but we only make decisions because of our environment, and that influences our choice whether or not we have free will. So couldn't God have made an environment where, especially like specifically in the rebellion against God, couldn't He have made that environment uh, to where the humans wouldn't have rebelled against God?
Well, you're asking me a question I obviously can't answer because I'm not God. I don't know why he makes these choices. I don't know why God made us um in some sort of way that where we had the ability to sin. Like I don't know why. But I can like that act of like rebellion was a uh way to find growth, because life's challenges and struggles are opportunities for spiritual growth. So when in God's absence, those people who rebelled against God learned that um, if God was not there, nature would take over, um, and lead to famine or natural disasters, which is why they need God's presence. Like, I mean, I think we're getting at two different points, but like, I
Right.
mean, I don't understand. 100% understand. Like,
I guess I think that personally, if I was a Christian, I would sort of probably want to try and answer these questions because you could say that you're not God, but at the end of the day, you have to reconcile with the fact that you have faith in this God and you believe that he is all loving.
well,
And
I mean, you're asking me a lot of questions. The problem is that you're asking me a lot of questions I can't necessarily answer because they're more related. Like, why did God do this? Why did God do that? And at the end of the day, I can't give you a real answer because I'm not God. But you can ask me more questions like why I think this or why I think that, and things that are more personalized towards me, not as to why I think God did this, why I think God did that, because I don't really know how God uh
well, it's
works in
because
people's
the
lives.
the thing is, like, you're sort of answering the questions like with the presumption that God is right. But I'm sort of coming at it with the fact that God is well, technically I think he's not real, but like
Yeah.
let's say he made the wrong decision. So I'm sort of coming at it where I'm assuming that he didn't make these decisions. So I'm sort of
Mhm.
um, you know, assuming
I mean,
that
and
this
that's
is
fine, but
technically a
I'm
story,
still
but
saying that like um I know that my answers don't sound 100% like concrete and they don't sound morally sound, but that's just because like I don't know. And I'm low-key tired of using the answer I don't know because I mean, there's nothing really else for me to say, but I don't know in
yeah,
these very specific questions. So, I mean,
that's fine.
like I mean, I because I do want the plot to move forward. So, I mean, I don't want to get stuck on this question for too long.
Yeah, I mean that's
Um
fine. I mean I also just think like just generally speaking, if I was believing in a certain faith, if these questions came up and I said I don't know, I mean that's fine to say, but um, if I was digging for the answer and I couldn't find the answer, I think that says something about the faith itself, in my opinion.
mhm.
Not necessarily like about it doesn't say anything about you or anyone, right? But if you dig for the answer and you can't find it, I think it's it's time to question a bit like more fundamentally where your faith is. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's sort of my position, but I could be wrong.
Wait, is this is kind of like on the topic of natural disasters, but I mean not really, but like um if suffering and death by natural means are a part of natural selection, like are they like is um yeah, is suffering death just a part of natural selection? Like question mark.
Yes, it is.
Is it inconsistent to say suffering is quote unquote wrong rather than just an unfortunate reality?
Well, it is an unfortunate reality because it would. There's no other way it could have been, right?
Mhm.
So I don't. Wait, what exactly were you trying to say?
I was like saying, is it like inconsistent to say suffering is wrong that rather than just an unfortunate reality?
Well,
Like suffering by
I
natural
can't
means. Like,
say
is it
suffering is wrong. I don't think I've
what?
ever said that necessarily.
Wait, what?
I don't think I've ever said suffering is wrong.
Do you think suffering is wrong?
Uh, in certain scenarios, it's not wrong. It's just, uh, I said I'm a moral emotivist, so it would it would be like I don't like that suffering exists. So it's not
Mhm.
necessarily that it's wrong. It's just that I don't like it.
Wait, are you okay? Well, from an atheist perspective, do you think like assuming there is no God, do you think that the universe is like random and without purpose?
I I don't think that's actually an interesting question. I'm glad you asked. Actually, I don't think there's purpose, and I think a lot of people believe in faith because they want a sense of purpose, and I think that's fine.
Mhm. That's fair, yeah.
But I don't think that because one flaw I will say with William Lane Craig actually is that a lot of reasons he gives for the existence of Christianity is based in a sense of meaninglessness in the absence of Christ, and or like God at least. And in my opinion, that's like a completely terrible position, in my opinion, because to say that the universe ought have some purpose because we happen to develop a higher consciousness, and we can sort of understand these profound things, like that doesn't necessitate the universe having some sort of purpose. It just means that we have to reconcile with the fact that the universe doesn't have a purpose. And I think that giving that as a response, or giving that as evidence that God must be real, is absurd, in my opinion.
Mhm.
That's just my opinion on that. But also, do I think the universe is random? That's a great question. I said I said earlier I'm a deist, which entails a necessary being for the existence of the universe. And I want to say yes, it is random, because, in my opinion, the necessary being is timeless and spaceless. So technically, I mean, okay, what do you mean by random? Because that is interesting.
Like, do things happen with no like there's no God. So like sometimes people assume that like God has some sort of intention, so things happen for a reason. If there's no God, things happen randomly without any purpose or intention.
I don't think the necessary being has any intention. That's so in that sense, I guess it is random. It's random in the sense like that we don't have a purpose, or we can't give it a purpose, even if we say that there is a God who created the universe.
Wait,
But
so in what sense would it not be random? Like,
it would not be random because if there is a necessary being who creates the universe, I believe that they would not be like conscious, or I don't think they would have any like human traits, if you know what I mean. Like I don't think they would have. I think also when I say like God, I don't think the image in your head is correct in my belief. I think like I like the term necessary being more because it's more of a broad definition, because when you say God, most people think like a, a person in the sky who's like commanding shit. But when I
mhm.
think God in the deist perspective, at least, I think it can technically just be anything, or something that we can't even comprehend, that just is, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
who created the universe for some reason. I mean, there doesn't have to be a reason. It could just be this thing, right?
Mhm.
Um, so in that sense, it is random, but I think the fact that we do exist and we did come into being at a specific point in time, I don't think that was random. So
Mhm.
it's sort of a mixed bag, you know.
And like what you said, what you just said now about, or was that about our existence or like?
Uh, like the universe's existence. I
Okay,
think
I mean,
our
do you think?
existence is completely random. Like
Okay, do you think
life.
any of our existence has meaning?
No, definitely not. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles that atheists have to contend with, is the fact that we don't have any purpose at all. And I think that's why a
Mm-hmm.
lot of atheists and during difficult times they turn to Christ, or any religion for that matter, because it
Mm-hmm.
does give them a purpose, right? So
So, like, so human history, love and art, achievements that we all that has come in this universe. Does that nothing really matters?
well, objectively speaking, it doesn't. But like in our perspective for the human like existence, it has purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say like in the grand scheme of the universe, if you want to put it like that, it doesn't mean anything, you know?
So, if we're talking value wise, like, would you say that you have the same value as like bacteria or like a dinosaur?
I don't know about a dinosaur, but I would say definitely not to a bacteria.
Wait, but you said you have no like you don't matter.
Well,
So if nothing
yeah, I don't
matters,
matter in the lens of the universe.
Yeah, so in the lens of the universe, like, um, are humans on the same level as like a piece of bacteria or like a rock?
What does that mean? Like what
Because you said
same
like
level? Like morally? What does that mean, you
what?
know? Like what do you mean the same level?
That was irrelevant anyway. Like I was just like
No,
I
no, I
was just
mean,
like
it's
curious
fine,
to your thought.
you know?
I mean, it wasn't anything important. I was just like wondering, like, because like
Well, nothing is
a
really.
lot of people do like what you said. Like a lot of atheists have a hard time coping with that fact in their
Well, I only said that because
beliefs and
I
stuff.
did, actually.
Pardon?
I only said that because I did, but I can't speak for other
I mean,
atheists.
it is true. I mean, like, I've seen people talk about that.
Yeah, and that's
Like
why.
even a lot of Christians like were once atheists that turned to Christ because they needed something to turn to.
Yeah, and
Which I mean, yeah, I mean, like, I mean, I guess that kind of leads into my next question that I just thought of. Like, do you think Christianity is bad? Like, objectively speaking.
objectively, I can't speak on that, but I don't think
Like, I don't mean
it's
like the belief itself like being wrong, but like in general, the impact. Do you think it's been negative?
definitely not. I would say religion. I think religion is inevitable in human
Hmm.
existence because it
We're all
is
gonna strive to look forward to something. I
it
feel
is
like.
true that a lot of people can't answer the question of why we exist, and excuse me, um, sorry, they turn to a deity who gives them purpose, right? So I
Hmm.
think all religions are inevitable, right?
Hmm.
And specifically for Christianity, I think it's had profound effects on people's lives. And
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, there are evil acts that are justified with Christianity, and also like circumcision and all that shit. Like, I I've read God is Not Great by Christopher Hitchens, and you know the examples he gives is pretty bad. Let me just say that. But I think at the end of the day, the positives outweigh the negatives, and
Hmm.
I think trying to first of all, let me just say that bad people who justify things with Christianity. First of all, it says nothing about the faith itself, and second of all, it says nothing about the truth of the faith. So
Hmm.
I guess that's sort of an
I mean, yeah, like
oxymoron,
you're
but
definitely allowed to think that what I'm saying is not true, and like that's cool. Like I'm fine with that. Um, but I mean, yeah, a lot of people mistake my question with like saying, "Do you think Christianity is right?" And if you don't, well, that's fine. Like I don't know. I
yeah,
mean, I know you have to go soon, so I mean,
that's
before
true.
you do,
Yeah.
any last quick questions for me, or
Quick
I don't know. I don't think I have any
questions.
questions.
Um,
We didn't get to talk about animal suffering. That's the only thing I thought about in my sleep last night. Animal
really?
suffering. But I mean, I don't really have much of a formulated opinion. It just like clung to my mind for some reason.
All right. I mean, that's fine. I mean, last questions, why don't you think Mormonism is a form of Christianity?
Low key, I'd actually be down to get into that if a next episode ever happens.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe hopefully.
Well, I
Maybe if I
mean,
get my thoughts
in a
together
nutshell,
properly
though.
and I actually prepare beforehand.
But like in a
um
nutshell, do you think Mormonism is Christian?
um at first I was like Mormonism isn't Christianity, but then I mean I thought about last night because I did some like brief googling about the definition of Christianity, and I guess it falls under. Um, I mean, although I do not believe a lot of their ideologies are correct, specifically with the Joseph Smith stuff. I guess at the end of the day they are Christians, but they just aren't. They're just like I think we conflict too much for us to be considered uh extremely similar. So I think they are at the end of the day Christians, and I'm glad that they love God, but there is some iffy stuff going in there on there in a nutshell.
I mean, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was lovely having you on the podcast. Let me just
You
say that.
too.
Well,
You
my my existence in the podcast was inevitable.
too.
So, you know, but hey, you know, that was the Morals Matter podcast chat. Um, we're probably gonna be doing an episode soon later.
I'll prepare for the next one. I promise.
Yeah, we should probably
I wish
prepare
I
for the next one because
Yeah,
I'll have to
this
cut
is
out
just
a lot
me
of this.
freeballing.
But
So I mean, yeah, you can type in the comments and you can tell me that I wasn't very well spoken, and I would agree with you
uh-huh.
because it's pretty late and it's my bedtime actually. So,
Same.
yeah. Hope you enjoyed. Please don't hate me. Love you all.
Like,
Mwah.
subscribe, comment your
Hit that
thoughts.
bell notification.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, I'll see you on the next one, guys.
Fire.
Fire.